Valentine's Day is right around the corner, and if you're looking for some quick crafts that won't break the bank, I've got you covered. Hey everyone, my name's Jess. I'm really excited to get crafting. I hope you are too. Let's get started. Wooden trays are a great way to display some of the things you have for the different holidays and seasons. I grabbed this wooden tray from a Dollar Tree that had a plus section. It was only $3 and it was a pretty good size. Along with the wooden tray, I'm also going to use some of these giant craft sticks that I like to pick up at Walmart. I started by measuring the inside of the tray from the inside of each of the frames, and then I got to work cutting down the giant craft sticks. I always like to use my paper trimmer because I think it's just the easiest way to get the most precise measurement on all of the sticks. Once I had enough sticks cut for the inside of my tray, then I moved on to the next step. Because this wooden tray had such a nice wood grain pattern to it, I didn't want to paint over it, but I did want to stain it, but I wanted to keep it with the Valentine's theme. So I took a small bowl of water and I'm adding to it some pink chalk paint and some red chalk paint to get the color that I liked. And once I applied it to the tray, it really helped show off that wood grain, but it also gave it a nice tint for Valentine's Day. I worked in small sections across the tray. I applied the stain that I created with the paintbrush, and then I'm using some wet wipes to wipe off the excess. I didn't paint too much of a section at one time because I didn't want the paint to start drying before I had a chance to wipe it off. So I just worked in little batches until I had the whole tray covered in the stain. While my tray was drying, I grabbed some white chalk paint and I started painting all of my craft sticks. You can see here that I cut all of these craft sticks down to the right width, and then there's one smaller craft stick there that I had to cut lengthwise because it needed to be a little bit smaller so that it would all fit inside of the tray. Now that all of my paint is dry, I can start adding the sticks to the bottom of the tray. I started on one side and I'm just using hot glue, and I'm hot gluing all of the sticks side by side. I'm pushing them pretty tight up against each other. I don't really want any gaps in between the two sticks. And the smaller stick that I had to cut lengthwise, I decided to tuck that into one of the ends rather than putting it in the middle so that you wouldn't be able to see it as much. I think the tray looks cute just like this, but I decided to add one more embellishment to mine. I had some of these wooden hearts in my stash. I grabbed 4 of them, and using a gold paint pen, I gave them a quick coat of the gold paint. Then I used a white chalk marker and I spelled out the word love across 4 of the hearts, and I hot glued them onto the side of the tray. I found this bundle of frosted branches at Hobby Lobby around Christmas time. I didn't get around to using them then, so I figured I'd use them for Valentine's Day. I also grabbed an old can, some berry garland, and some felt. I wasn't sure if you'd be able to see the can or not through the branches, so I gave it one quick coat of white chalk paint just in case. After my paint was dry, I just used some hot glue and I started gluing the branches on around the can. I made sure that the bottom of each branch lined up with the bottom of the can so that when it was sitting upright, it wouldn't get wobbly from the branches being uneven across the bottom. I also tried to pick out mostly branches that were pretty straight. This bundle had a bunch of different sizes and shapes of branches in it, and for the most part, I picked out the straight ones, and every once in a while, I would just put one in there that was a little crooked to give it more character. Now, one thing you have to be careful with, because this is a metal can, if you're using hot glue, just be careful because that metal can heat up really fast, even from just a small amount of glue. So if you want to take an extra precaution, you could make sure you have a glove or something on your hand that's going to be inside the can. After I had a few of the branches in place, then I was able to take my hand from the inside of the can and just work on the outside. I just kept doing this, adding a bit of hot glue and adding a branch until I had the whole can covered. Next, I grabbed a wooden heart that I had in my stash to use as a pattern. Any size heart will do. I just wanted to make sure that this would fit on the front of my centerpiece. I traced it twice on my piece of red felt and I cut it out. Using my hot glue, I stayed as close as I could to the edges of the heart, and I applied some hot glue to the top 2/3 of the heart, leaving the bottom open. Once the hot glue was all nice and set up, then I added a little bit of pillow stuffing or polyfill to the inside of the heart to make it puffy. Once I had it as full as I liked it, then I used my hot glue again to seal up the bottom. The last thing I needed to do was add my berry garland. I got this around Christmas time at the Dollar Tree, but they always carry this for the different holidays in different colors, but I really like this because it's just nice and simple with the white beads on it. I wrapped it around my centerpiece a few times, staggering it out so it looks like it crisscrossed over on itself. And you can see here, I did add a little jute bow to the stuffed heart I made, and I just glued that onto the front. Now, if you don't really like to decorate for Valentine's Day, you could make this centerpiece just for winter, and you could leave it as is. I think it looks cute with just the berry garland on it, or you could even add a snowflake to the front too. Wood rounds are so trendy for decorating these days, and when I saw these wooden hearts at the Dollar Tree, I thought, why not decorate it like I would a wood round? So I grabbed one of those hearts, a few ribbons, and some greenery that I had lying around. I really like the Antique Wax by Waverly, but for this project, I wanted my stain color to be a bit darker, so I mixed together some of the Antique Wax with just a tiny bit of the ink colored chalk paint by Waverly. I applied it with my paintbrush, and then using my wet wipes, I wiped off all the excess so that you could still see that wood grain showing through the darker stain. While my stain was drying, I got to work creating the bow for the front of my heart. I started with this burlap ribbon that I had. I cut 2 lengths and folded them so that they created 2 loops. Then I did the same thing with some black and white striped ribbon that I had. I cut 2 lengths and folded it into 2 loops. Then I took my 2 burlap loops, I set them side by side, and I started accordion folding them from one end to the other. Once I had them all pinched together in the center, I used a piece of jute twine to hold it in place, and then I repeated that again with the black and white striped ribbon. I held them side by side, and I just pleated them in the center, and once they were pinched together, I tied them with some twine. To finish off my bow, I stacked the black and white ribbon on top of the burlap ribbon, and I tied the 2 bundles together. Now, to give this bow a more finished look, I took another piece of the black and white ribbon and I just wrapped it around the center, and I attached it in the back with some hot glue. To add a pop of color to my wood heart, I took some painter's tape and I blocked off a rectangle right through the center of the heart. I just kind of eyeballed it. I didn't bother measuring it. Once I had it taped off and I liked the width of it, then I used some red chalk paint and gave it a good coat right in the center. The last thing I needed to do was hot glue my bow to the center of my heart. Then I clipped off a few pieces of greenery and tucked them in and around the bow. Now, I kept this pretty simple and neutral, but if you have a Cricut or a cutting machine, you could cut out your family's last name. I think that would look really cute on this heart, or even make a smaller bow, put it to the side, and you could add your favorite quote that applies to Valentine's Day. Sometimes it's hard to find decorations that fit in a vertical space. I grabbed 4 of these palette hearts that they have at the Dollar Tree, 2 white and 2 pink. I also cut out the letters to spell out the word love on my Cricut. If you don't have a Cricut, you could use poster stickers or buy some of the wooden letters that they have at craft stores like Michael's and Hobby Lobby. This craft comes together really quickly. All I did was glue 1 letter to each of the hearts to spell out the word love. I cut my letters out on cardstock rather than vinyl, so I'm using my favorite paper glue, which is the art glitter glue, to attach these to each of the hearts. I always have this glue in the description box in case you're interested. Now these hearts already had holes at the top of them for the hangers that came with them, so I used that to my advantage. I took the hangers out that came with the hearts, and I'm using some jute twine, and you can see I'm starting from the back to the front, tied a knot in it, and then I trimmed off the excess of each side. I like to have the knots showing through the front. I think it just gives it a little more character. Once I had all of the jute twine on all 4 of my hearts, then I took the length of jute twine from the top and I hot glued it to the back of the heart that belongs on top. So this way it's going to be a vertical hanger spelling out the word love. Or you could write XOXO on the 4 hearts, or even leave them plain. I think these hearts are so pretty on their own with the fake wood grain they have running through them. I think it would look cute just plain, or add some family pictures too. Now to finish out the top of my heart, I used the same jute twine, but I wanted just a little extra embellishment. I didn't want to put a bow or anything on it, so I just grabbed some black wooden beads that I already had in my stash. I strung a few on the string, tying the other end to the other end of the heart, and then I just added half the beads to one side and half to the other to make the hanger a bit more decorative. When I'm decorating for the different holidays and seasons, sometimes I just need little pieces to fill in the gaps. At Christmas time, I created some faux presents, so I thought, why not create some faux presents for Valentine's Day too? I grabbed a couple boxes from some things I had that I was going to end up throwing out anyway. You can see here I have a box from some vinyl. I have an old deodorant box. So this is a great way to make use of things that you were going to throw out anyway. I started by wrapping each of the boxes in some plain craft paper, and then I got to work decorating the fronts of each of the boxes. For one of the boxes, I created a scrappy bow. This is a great way to use up some of the ribbon that you might have in your stash. I have a ton of ribbon, so I'm always looking for a way to use it up. Let me know in the comments if you're in the same boat. So for my scrappy bows, I like to cut pieces that are about 6 inches long, and each type of ribbon that I'm using, I cut 2 pieces. So for each ribbon or trim that I'm using, because I do have some trims that I have too, I cut 2 pieces at 6 inches. Once all of the pieces were cut down to size, then I just started laying them out in an X pattern, and I try to start with the widest ribbon first and work my way up towards the thinnest ribbon. And I also like to alternate colors. So here I'm creating a scrappy bow out of pink ribbon and white ribbon. So I like to lay down a piece of the white ribbon, and then I go on to one of the pink ribbons, and so forth until I have all of my ribbons and trims laid out in an X pattern. After everything's laid out how I like it, then I go back through, I pinch it together in the middle, and I'm using a piece of white cotton twine just to tie everything and hold it in place. You could also use a zip tie here or a pipe cleaner. Because this bow is so pretty on its own, I didn't think that this package needed anything else. I glued a piece of pink gingham ribbon to look like it was wrapped around the package, and then I just set my scrappy bow on top off to one side. Now for this smaller square package that I had wrapped, I wrapped a few pieces of ribbon around this box, and then I created a little sign from one of the heart chalkboard tags that you can get at the Dollar Tree. I just used a chalk marker and I wrote "I heart you" on it, and I attached that to the front of this square box. For my last package, I put a piece of ribbon going down through the center. Then I gathered up some of the wooden hearts that I had in my stash. I stacked them all together using some hot glue, and I just placed that on the front of the package. This is where you can really get creative. You can use these little packages on tiered trays or on bookshelves or on your coffee bar, anywhere you need to fill in the little gaps. Thanks for coming to hang out in the craft room with me today. If you need some more Valentine's Day inspiration, I left some videos on the screen that I think you might like. I hope you have a great week, and I'll talk to you in the next one.